beautiful folks, what is up? Welcome back, and how are you doing? This is your favorite struggling R&B producer, Valentine the Plug, live from the Danger Room. We are sampling R&B today because that's something that we haven't done in a hot minute, so I'm really excited to return back to that. I got a dope sample from the girl group Blaque, of course, the brainchild of Lisa Left Eye Lopez. We're sampling the song Fall Through, so if you're interested in the song, go and check it out on YouTube. And once we get back after the preview, I'm gonna break down how I turn this into a fire beat. Let's get it.
The Blaque's got you covered.
Alright, beautiful people, welcome back into FL Studio. So as I said, Fall Through by Blaque, the brainchild of Lisa Left Eye Lopez, actually the group that she started to express the creative ideas that she couldn't, express with TLC. And you definitely hear a lot of Lisa of Left Eye's, signature, her trademarks on the songs by Blaque. So amazing, really amazing. I peeped the song a couple of times. Usually when I sample a song, I listen to it a couple of times just to get a general idea of the vibe. I try to look up the producer, see what their other work is, see if it's signature, but mostly to identify which parts would actually work in a beat. So the part highlighted in red is actually the hook. That's usually what I'm going with R&B samples. Usually the hook is just fine. Often you'll find that the intro is amazing, and in rare times you'll find that pieces of the verse are actually what you want. But one part that never disappoints when sampling R&B, especially 90s and early 2000s R&B, is the bridge. And a bridge is something that you rarely hear in contemporary R&B. I don't know why exactly people decided to let go of that, but a bridge is, especially for samples, a gold mine. So that's what it's almost similar to being a butcher. You know which pieces of meat contain the most flesh for people to eat. It's kind of similar, but also not. But it's kind of similar, but it's also not. This is a really weird metaphor. So either way, I got my chops. I got them loaded up in a playlist right here, and as you can see, I pitched it up 1,000 cents. I'm actually planning on combining that with a duplicate of the sample, which I am going to make unique, which I am going to pitch down an entire octave and then send it to a different mixer track to process it differently. I could parallel process them, but this is kind of what I feel like working with right now, and I don't think parallel processing would allow me to pitch it up or down. So this is what I'm going to be working with now. I'm just play you the chops that I got. So you listen to the chops, and I've also put on the metronome so you can get an idea of what the tempo is that I'm going to be working with. And I'm looking for something that is a lot more up-tempo, actually. I'm looking to make more of an up-tempo, I'm going to say it right now, I'm looking to make a more up-tempo Bryson Tiller type beat. And he's done that before. He's done beats, he's done songs that are more up-tempo, that are also more upbeat in terms of tone. So that's kind of the thing that I'm going for right now. So processing is something that is very important if you're looking to sample R&B. The first thing that I usually do, I take out a multiband compressor. Ozone 9 Dynamics is my go-to multiband compressor. The shit's never disappointed me. I set it to learn so it can understand how the frequencies are divided. And this is a pretty hefty way of compressing, but I'm deliberately doing that because the mid frequencies are very much overrepresented in the song, and it's also where a lot of the boominess comes from, and I don't like that boominess, because that boominess makes that a vocalist won't have a lot of space. It'll make sure that the vocalist has to clash, and that's something that I want to prevent beforehand. After that, I take out an equalizer just to filter out, because I like when the samples are actually, when you attain that underwater effect for your samples. And that's something that you hear a lot in Bryson Tiller type beats. I think that, wow, there's the song, I forgot the name, but it's the first song he debuted off of his new album. And, you know, that's where the samples sound a lot more brighter. So it does occasionally occur that, well, look at me. It does sometimes happen that the sample is a lot more brighter, that the sample is a lot more present in the mix, but usually his producers will go for a lot more filtered effect. I attain that by using a very radical low pass and a very fat, flat high pass. This is what it sounds like right now. Let me demo it again for you. So right now it still sounds kind of dry, so I took out choral and phases to give it a little bit of wetness. You know, a chorus effect, it duplicates the effect, but due to the slight delay, it does make it sound like it's doubled, and that's actually cool in a cosmetic way. So I'm gonna turn up the amount, turn up the voices just a little bit, turn up the delay and the feedback, and this is what it should be sounding right now. And then at the same time, you're hearing the phases. You know, you hear the sample kind of phasing in and out in terms of presence. That's the best way I can put it right now. That's exactly what the phaser is doing. It introduces a cool way of movement, which I really like. Now, here's where it gets kind of dicey. I'm going to introduce shaperbox, and I'm going to let it play. There's not much playing with the filter to be done, so I'm going to let it play with the pan. And usually I just take out these rhythm patches, I set them to 2 bars, and I just see what happens. Good. And then I'm going to be taking out the volume, because I do like it when it plays with the volume. You know, you get that gated pumping effect. So like this. Alright, so we're almost there. So I'm going to turn on Chrystallizer. And Chrystallizer is a plugin that I've been using a lot in the videos. People that have been following me, they know about Chrystallizer. It gives my samples a certain je ne sais quoi. So I'm going to turn down the output, the recycle, and the mix, because I don't need the effect to be present too much. I'm going to set my delay to a quarter note, and then we're going to see what it sounds like. So there's a little bit more tweaking that I need to be doing, because I don't like it when the tail end is constantly, when there's no cutoff. Actually, I think the feedback is a little bit too high. So I do need to tweak that a little bit. And I can usually just do that by turning down the mix. Maybe that's the option. But this is what we're going to be working with. So let me just pull up this. I pulled up an instance of Contact, and I took out Noir Pure. I'm using the Pure variation. You actually have 2 variations. You have the felt variation in Noir, and you have the Pure variation. It doesn't really matter. And I wrote this chord progression in the key of D minor. That's the chord progression that the sample is in after pitching it down or up, whichever your take is. So I am rocking with a regular G minor 7 chord that goes into a D minor 7 chord. Again, a D minor 7 chord, but this time regular. This is an inversion. Cycles back to the G minor 7 chord, and basically is G minor and D minor. Here I'm actually playing that D minor 7 chord with a raised fifth, so it's actually D minor 7 sharp 5, and that gets me this. And the point I'm actually trying to make is that, you could just let the sample rock, but it becomes so much more interesting if you actually add your own elements to the song. And that's what I'm going to be doing with this piano. I actually also feel like taking out a pad, adding a vocal sample to it, give it that Valentine the Plug flavor. And after that, that's when we're going to start laying down the drums, get that groove and that bounce going on. So you can see I've got an instance of Analog Lab pulled up here. I've got an instance of Omnisphere pulled up here. I'm going to copy this pattern, which I use for my piano, paste them into two different patterns, send them to designated mixer tracks, track 7, track 8, and I'll probably dedicate track 9 to the vocal sample Analog Lab pad. I'm looking for my pad in Analog Lab, and I'm probably just going to add another set of keys coming from Omnisphere, on which I am pretty likely to put Cymatics' origin to downsample it a little bit, and it's pretty likely that my pad processing preset is gonna work. Quick overview: it's an equalizer, it's chorus, phases, shaperbox, and Chrystallizer, which I use on my pad to get that cool wavy effect. So now that everything is kind of in place, all I really have to do is cycle through the sounds. And this is probably an important tidbit on workflow, because at this point, I know what I want to add in my beat. So all I really have to do is just match my ideas with the sounds I can find, and I won't have to worry about processing. That saves time. The patch that I found in Omnisphere is actually under the keyboards tab. It's called Liquid Tones, and I didn't change a thing about it. I actually wanted to introduce the granular module on both of them, but I like the difference between the harmonic and the granular, which is what the sound is made of. So I'm leaving it at that. I sent it to Cymatics Origin. I did do some hefty downsampling, actually. Turn up the movement a little bit, the real effect a little bit down, turn up the chorus just up a little bit. I added shaperbox to play with the filter, and what it mostly did is give the sample a lot of necessary movement that made it more dynamic. And that allows it to stand out, because if you, let's say that, I have the piano and I stack it with the Omnisphere keys, you get this real static layer in which nothing is happening. So what shaperbox is doing is actually making it more dynamic by having it fade out and fade in, just like this. And the cool thing is that this liquid tone sound has a built-in kind of swell, and that almost kind of makes it function like a pad. So now I need to differentiate my pad from what I already have, but we're getting somewhere, trust me. Alright, so what have we got so far? Let me play it for y'all. Sounds deep, emotional, introspective, Bryson Tiller, y'all. So let me go and look for a faint vocal sample in the key of D minor, or in its relative major key, of course, F major. Yeah, it's F major. Alright, so vocal sample hunting actually took me longer than I expected it would, but still we got two amazing vocal samples right here, which I sent to this processing chain, which is actually pretty long, actually. Auto-tune, of course, doubler for stereo, bi-waves, neutron freeze equalizer, Raum and replica on the same channel as inserts, not as buses, neutron free compression, of course, and Chrystallizer. And that all produces these two wet vocal samples. And as you can see, I still had to assign my piano to a channel of its own. That being said, I might just slap Cymatics Origin onto this baby as well. And then I think it's actually time to start laying down the drums. So usually I do these drum montages where I lay down the drums like bit by bit, but honestly this pattern was so simple I really did not feel like wasting your time with that. So let me just demo what I got right now. I missed my cue. Anyways, this is what I'm going to be working with today. I am going back to Splice, which is, by the way, where I got the vocal samples from. I don't think I mentioned that, but I got the vocal samples from Splice. Basically, I just hit this here, F major, which is the relative major of the key that I'm working with, and I just looked for vocal samples that sounded good. But let me just go to recently added because there's this sick hi-hat transition that I really want to incorporate in this beat. Also, quick tip, if you're working in a playlist and you don't want your waveforms, your sounds to snap to the grid, you can just hit Alt and then you'll be able to freely drag it across the playlist. So keep that one in mind. And you know, I don't have to explain to you why transition effects are so important. They build suspense in your beat, and especially if you're looking to get those beats placed, tension, suspense build up is so important in your beat. I cannot stress this enough. So that being said, I'm actually looking for a drum groove to put underneath the drum beat, and of course we're gonna have to make a decision what kind of bass we're gonna use. So if it's a Bryson Tiller type beat you're making, your choices are either 808 or a deep Moog Grease kind of bass, and I am going for the crowding bass, which is kind of the deep bass that I like using. Now I'm gonna be turning down the brightness a lot because the basses in Bryson Tiller type beats aren't bright at all. So I'm gonna be opening the piano roll. I'm gonna mostly be playing this by ear and see what fits with the beat. Now the amazing thing about like a dark growling bass is that it does add its own character to the beat. So in the beginning I may have said that I was looking for something upbeat. That completely is not the case anymore. This shit is melancholic, introspective, it's sad, it's perhaps even it may or may not facilitate Bryson Tiller at his most toxic or most introspective. Either way, listen to the bass that I have. If you look at the notes, I am starting on the 4th. I am landing on the root note. However, I decided to pitch it up an octave because if I set it to D2, you can't hear a damn thing. Actually, descends to the 7th, goes to the 6th. It's actually pretty descending from here. So that's essentially the notes that I used. What it sounds like, yo. Alright, good folks, we're nearing the end of the video, and I just want to end this video by introducing you to two little elements that I added to the beat. So you'll notice that here I deliberately left out the drums and the keys and the vocal samples and all of that, but I wanted to make a cool transition, and so I went into Splice. I went into this particular kit by Origin Sound, and they have amazing R&B kits, by the way, so if you're interested, go and check out Origin Sound. I took out a drum beat and I let it play right up until this sample's playing, which is actually straight from the hook. So you get like a kind of suspense building part, something completely different from the drum beat that you're used to, and the transition kind of sounds like this. one thing that you can maybe faintly hear is this new vocal sample sounding like. And you may have been able to see that I have the volume of this all the way to 3% because I do not want it to be too present, but I do want it to kind of be noticeable to the people that are looking for it. It's just another very subtle layer. So this is of course a loop, but this loop contains all of the elements that make the beat. And if you want to hear the full version, please go and cycle back to the beginning at the timestamp where I announced that the full beat is available for you to listen to. But this beat is amazing, and I just love it. I love how it started with an R&B sample, which provides an amazing backdrop for me to, you know, unleash all kinds of cool elements on. I just love the art of sampling R&B. And one thing that you kind of need to remember is that sampling in R&B, in this particular genre, this trap soul genre, for lack of a better name, the sample is the backdrop and you're building the rest of the beat around the sample. It isn't like boom bap where the sample is essentially the beat and you're supplementing it with drums and effects and that kind of thing. The sample doesn't take as much of a prominent role. It's there to set the vibe and the ambience, and you it's more the elements that you add to it that make the beat. Or at least that's my philosophy on this. So either way, I'm so happy with this beat. I'm happy y'all for tuning in. We made a fire late night R&B beat for Bryson Tiller, and I just want to say thank y'all for watching. If you enjoyed this, like, share, and subscribe, of course. I would deeply appreciate it, and I hope to see y'all in the next video. Y'all be easy. Peace.